Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the IGN Battlefield 5 Reveal Pre-Show. I'm here with Max Scoville.
Howdy.
We're going to be discussing Battlefield 1 kind of in a post-more capacity, looking at a history of Battlefield, a really cool video that I stayed up way too late editing. And then we're going to talk about everything we know about Battlefield 5, including those teases. So let's get straight into it with our thoughts about Battlefield 1 in retrospective. I have to say, I think it was my favorite Battlefield in the history of my Battlefield career. What about you?
I'm a newcomer to the series, but this is the one that really kind of got me into it. I haven't historically really been that into multiplayer shooters. I kind of cut my teeth on Star Wars Battlefront because I'm a big Star Wars nerd, and then Battlefield 1 completely hooked me. And I was still playing it just this last weekend.
Yeah, that was a really nice transition for you, for Battlefront 2 into Battlefield 1.
Yeah.
Kind of layering on some more tactical elements.
It's kind of funny
vehicles,
because so many of the weapons in Star Wars are in fact World War I weapons that they just glued camera pieces to, and then they started, I'm like, I know this gun, this is Dengar's gun, and then it shows up, and I'm like, oh, this is an actual historical machine gun, interesting. But no, one thing I've always been frustrated with in terms of multiplayer shooters is that feeling of being like in timeout, like from dodgeball or whatever, in PE class, and I'm not great at games, but Battlefield is very rewarding to people who are, maybe they're better at helping, maybe you're throwing down med kits or ammo or whatever, you still feel like you're kind of part of the team, so it's kind of that like, everybody wins sort of, participation medal approach to competitive gaming.
Speaking about the kind of in timeout mode, I went back and I played 1942 last night. I recaptured like all of these Battlefield games, and the running theme was the respawn time was lessened and lessened and lessened, and you were back into the action. Things that we take for granted, like uncappable points on almost every map, being able to spawn in your squad mates, being able to spawn in a vehicle that can hold more than one person, those were all things that were added to the series iteratively. And it's really interesting going back and being like, oh wow, in Battlefield Bad Company, the medic also had the LMG, and the assault class had ammo, and they mix and they match, and they try and find this perfect rhythm.
No, I think it's something. I don't think I'm going out on a limb here when I say that the fun part of playing video games is when you're actually playing them, as opposed to sort of sitting on the bench. So if you get capped in the head 2 seconds into a match, sitting there for 30 seconds waiting for your turn to kind of jump back in there again, that's not really rewarding for actually participating. So it's kind of cool in Battlefield to be like, oh, I died. Well, I'll wait 5 seconds, and then I get to ride a horse now. This is nice.
The final thing I want to talk about with Battlefield 1, kind of looking back, is the historical setting. So Battlefield 4, moving forward, I think had an experience for a lot of people where they would jump into the game and they would immediately get killed by a helicopter or a jet. Battlefield Bad Company and Bad Company 2, man, those games have incredible missile spam. But obviously when it's set in World War I, that can't happen. You have a man on a horse and you have a tank that is moving 3 miles an hour. And that actually lent itself really, really, really well to just the gameplay.
Yeah, no, I think the historical setting was really fascinating. I'm also not like I've as far as kind of eras I gravitate towards, like World War I, not so much. I also didn't know a whole lot about it, but the technology was completely all over the place at that point.
Yeah, it was very. They were experimenting with a lot of different things.
Yeah, I'm surprised they honestly didn't add bicycles to Battlefield 1 because those were in use in the Battlefield. But I think it was. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the flying machines were a bit rudimentary, and the tanks are kind of. Yeah, they're slow.
And some stuff was kind of elaborated on a little bit. Like, I don't think the dynamite you could throw wherever and then just blow it up with a wire. I doubt anybody actually used that in war. Let me just check with my producer. Are we good to go to the history segment? No. Okay. All right. We're going to stick with this tank gameplay. This is actually
from this guy. Look at that.
From way back. This is an early preview event that I went to. And so this tank, you can obviously operate the turret and drive the tank. Some tanks you can spawn that have multi-crew vehicles. And one of the really cool things, if we see that kind of derelict tank over there, it has 2 cannons on the side. And what's really interesting about that from a gameplay standpoint is you jump in, you have just control over a machine gun, and you really have to rely on your side gunners. So it's a more powerful tank than this one-man army. I'm about to jump in it. But you need to rely on your teammates, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think the teamwork stuff is fun. It's also I don't know. At the same time, like if I'd spawn in there and I get one of the side guns, I feel like, oh, I'm helping. I'm shooting the guys who are on this particular side of the tank, even if I have no idea what I'm doing. And that's, I don't know. It's a grand old time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about what they've teased so far for Battlefield 5. We know that it will probably be set in World War II. And they tweeted out a bunch of stuff and some really interesting things in addition to just this teaser of this German pilot doing a very, very, very daunting, what would appear to be a melee kill. We confer a lot of details. We can see the health bars move to the center of the screen. We can see the Axis and the Allies up there at the top. So probably World War II.
It's traditional. A really weird tease to leave off
Isn't
on.
it weird?
I think the emphasis
that's a very
of the
creepy tone.
The V, VE.
Victory.
Yeah, Victory
Winston
Day.
Churchill.
Yeah. So I hope we get some Winston Churchill sound bites in this reveal. I feel like that's a pretty safe bet. But I don't know. It's also, this is totally a return to form for Battlefield as a series, right?
Yeah, this is going back to their roots. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, but they haven't been back to World War II since 1943, which was this really weird Xbox 360, PS3 exclusive online DLC. It was kind of an expansion, but kind of not. So going back to World War II, I think they have a lot of room to play around. And this is the first really modern incarnation. We know what we're doing with weaponry. We know what we're doing with the vehicles. Planes are very much in there, but we don't have things like helicopters. We don't have things like people running around with RPGs, even though I'm sure there will be bazookas. But
I'm sure they'll have fun with it. I think also, obviously, the comparison is going to be with, Call of Duty World War II, which more recent Call of Duty, even though that also started out in World War II, the gameplay quickly turned to kind of wall running and very fast paced and very small scale. And in terms of Battlefield, there's a ton of really cool vehicles to pull from, and it all,
Absolutely.
It's a totally different type of gameplay. But
yeah, it's actually going back and playing 1942. It's the polar opposite, right? Because you can only sprint for a certain amount of time before your soldiers just gassed. So you need to really rely on your teammates carrying you around. Let's very quickly go through these tweets that they have. They said 5 things that you can expect before the reveal. A new Battlefield setting, new Battlefield in a new setting. Now, I think this is weird because we've seen the Pacific, we've seen the Eastern Front, and the Western Front. So it's very interesting to me that they're saying a new setting, but I think we can infer that this is from World War II, or this will be in World War II. Brand new experience with everything you love about Battlefield, where every fight is different, brought to life across unexpected theaters of war. That's very interesting as well. Jumping down to 3, the return of War Stories. This is exciting, Max. You got to play that. War Stories are those short little vignettes, those single player things. What did you think of those?
I think it's a really smart way of showing off all the different kind of components of the game. Obviously, campaign is predominantly to kind of introduce players to different mechanics. But to have one character who's going through a linear campaign doesn't make any sense. So, jumping around is a nice kind of short and sweet approach.
All right, folks, 1 minute until the official reveal. I'm as excited as you. I cannot wait to toss my headphones on and see what the heck is happening with this game. Last things, new modes and experiences. Operations in Battlefield 1 gave you the chance to take on an epic journey across several maps. Will this team play focused experience be back in Battlefield? I think they'll have something iterating on it, because I really liked that. When you're playing in Battlefield, a lot of the times you can sit back with a sniper and not push the objective, but if you do push the objective, you get to see historically what happened if your side would have won the war. Obviously in World War II, that'll be fantastic.
History
and finally,
lessons with explosions. I love
it's fantastic. Gameplay changes, so I cannot wait to see what the gameplay changes are. And it looks as though we are going. We will see you. Stick around in just about an hour. We'll have a push-up for you. Enjoy.
Thanks, Bran. I've been playing Battlefield as long as I can remember. And over the past 16 years, these games have come a long way. From 1942 to Bad Company to Battlefield 4 and up to Battlefield 1. And today, I'm taking on the most important mission objective I've ever been a part of, telling all of you about Battlefield 5. I'm geared up, ready to go. My squad's out there, so let's deploy because we are live in London. Let's get the show started. Welcome, everyone, to the Battlefield 5 live reveal. I'm your host for this evening, Trevor Noah, and I'm so excited to be here introducing this new edition of Battlefield, which for some reason everyone has already assumed is Battlefield 5. I mean, and not Battlefield V. Could be V. Why not V? Battlefield V could be just as good. Yeah, I do love that fans on Twitter are actually changing the Vs in their profiles for this game, something my mother did many years ago, ahead of the curve. And most people don't know this, but the V in my name is actually a 5. Yeah, my name is actually pronounced Trev 5 or Noah. Very unique. As a huge fan of these games, I've always loved how captivating the Battlefield is. And today, you'll see that Battlefield 5 has the most immersive Battlefield ever. If you've ever been in a battle with me, you know that I'm the most dedicated support class you will ever meet. I'm in the mud, repairing the tanks. You know, I'm laying down mines as tank rushers come in. One time, I even repaired a plane mid-air that might be alive, but I'm sticking with it. Because you see, I love that glorious joy of being the uncelebrated hero in a battle. And this game is going to have tons of moments like that. There are so many new and exciting features coming to you in Battlefield 5 that you will learn about today. The next level of large-scale multiplayer, Battlefield 5 single-player war stories, and we'll start showing you the epic post-launch journey all players will experience when the game is finally released. And you know, we've got some other surprises, so why waste time? Let's get straight into it and get the show started. I'm joined now by the producers of Battlefield 5, Andreas Morell, Ryan MacArthur, and Lars Gustafsson, everybody. Gentlemen, I'm not here as a professional anything. I am here as a gamer. I am here as a Battlefield player. I am here to ask only the questions I am interested in. You have made a horrible mistake.
I knew it, I told you.
Let's start at the beginning. You are taking players back to where the Battlefield franchise started, World War II. Now, at this point, are you like those guys, you know, those elderly pilots that they find on an island in the Pacific, you know, who think that the war never ended? Is that who you are right now?
It did. It ended. You told me.
Wish I had to break it to you gently, Lars.
But Lars, why go back to that now?
To be honest with you, it's really, I mean, we yearned for years to go back to where it all started about 16 years ago. And, you know, technology has evolved and the team has gained so much experience that this is really the game we wanted to build, and that we did.
It's really something the guys back home at DICE are really passionate about, the whole era. Just ask Mr. Battlefield, he was there.
Right, Mr. Battlefield, that's Lars's nickname, by the way. I'm known as Madame Battlefield. Now, players have experienced World War II in so many movies and in games. It's really difficult to come up with a new and fresh perspective. What perspective are you bringing to it with this version of Battlefield? Andreas, will this be more Saving Private Ryan or Inglourious Basterds?
So we've seen all the movies, you know, we play the games, we've been there. I'm pretty sure, at least I can navigate half of France without a map just by playing the games. so for us, going back to where it all began for us, is really about delivering a World War II experience that no one's never seen before. Really kind of hitting on the unseen locations, the untold stories, the unplayed moments.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's really taking you on the journey from the start. And at the go, you will be able to play the German forces, the British forces, and we want to take you on that journey, you know, to exotic places like freezing Scandinavia, it's kind of our home turf, but in Norway, or rugged deserts where the battles took place in Northern Africa, or why not to the ruins of the once so beautiful Rotterdam. So it's really to take you on a journey. And we want to do this with a kind of a fresh and modern take, so really hopefully surprise the players, but also to please them.
You've given me a sneak peek, and so many words come to my mind. I mean, intense, immense, powerful. Ryan, do you have a specific way that you want players to see this Battlefield?
Well, I think the best way we can describe it is immersive. I mean, this needs to feel like the most immersive Battlefield that players have ever played. I mean, we want them to exploit the Battlefield in ways they've never been able to before. I mean, when you look at the chaotic multiplayer that the franchise is known for, and sort of fan classics like Conquest, and some of the new modes that the guys are working on, like Airborne, you know, we're going back with war stories, sort of that anthology storytelling that we had, we built in BF1, and telling new stories about men and women that change history. I mean, we get to tell everyone today that co-op is back in Battlefield 5, and that's a huge thing for us. And this is just the beginning. I mean, launch is just the beginning for this game, and we really want to take players on a journey through World War II.
It always feels like it's a journey. That's what it always feels like with Battlefield. Like, one thing I loved about the game was how the maps in the world was constantly changing. You know, it felt like my bedroom at home. I never knew what to expect. And I think when looking at this game, Andreas, what's your vision to take this to the next level?
So we're really building on what we started with previous games. It's really about giving players the most immersive world that they could enter. You should really be grounded in it. Expanding on the movement set that we've done so well, really pushing all these new features that we're going to be talking about.
Right, it sounds great. I'm genuinely excited. I have a few highlights that I'm looking forward to. Let's dive into it and talk about some of the gameplay. Here to do that is Daniel Berlin.
In Battlefield 5, we're expanding the toolbox for the player, giving you access to new abilities to create your own and brand new Battlefield moments. Now there's a deeper connection between the player and the world around you. You will be physically pushed by the shockwaves from explosions. You can experience completely new ways to traverse and tactically maneuver across the battlefield with our overhauled movement system. Our renowned destruction will rip up the terrain, leave chunks of masonry hanging from destroyed buildings, or have high-caliber rounds ripped straight through walls to take out the enemies hiding inside. We're also bringing back classic modes, such as Majority Rule Conquest, but we also have new modes and experiences for our unique take on World War II. We're bringing back operations with a bang, and we're calling it Grand Operations. Here, you'll experience multiple game modes as you fight over multiple maps, all wrapped within our narrative journey through historically inspired battles from World War II. With the return of our anthology format for single-player war stories, with new characters to meet and untold stories to discover. Back to you, Trevor.
Now, Daniel just talked about a new multiplayer experience called Grand Operations. And I'm really excited because it sounds to me like you can pilot a giant grand piano like a tank. I'm pretty certain that's what it is, right, Andreas?
I'm not sure about the piano, but it's definitely massive. It's really about reliving all these power fantasies from World War II, like Airborne being power dropped in, and it's operations from Battlefield 1, but bigger. It's really great.
Yeah, I mean, what we want players to feel like is sort of a dynamic player-impacted experience taking place over 4 fictional days. I mean, day 1 starts with you jumping out of an airplane and with the objective to destroy the enemy artillery, with that enemy sort of entrenching themselves to defend and protect. And depending on how the outcome of day 1 goes for you, as the two main forces start to battle over day 2 in a game of breakthrough, with the number of lives you have left remaining, depending on what you did the day before. And then as you continue to push on into new locations, we're going to see things like Conquest Assault, where players continue to fight for that terrain. And assuming, you know, when we see these players end up in a giant stalemate, then they're going to enter day 4, which is Final Stand. And I mean, this is sort of tired, muddy, no resources left. You've got just you, your squad, and one clip, and you all fight to the last man standing with the weight of the world on your shoulders.
So this is a game mode that you may never see if your games are not in a stalemate. You may never get to that 4th map and 4th story then.
Exactly.
That's an exciting way to play the game. I want to know when we can see more of that.
2 weeks. EA Play, Los Angeles. Yeah. You get hands-on multiplayer for the first time if you're there.
So even the reveal of Grand Operations spans across multiple events. Wow. Nice one, guys. I have to say, I heard you guys say that co-op is back, and that's one of my favorite aspects of Battlefield 1. Lars, can you tell me more about that mode?
I definitely can. I mean, I'm happy to say that for the first time since Battlefield 3, co-op is back, and we're calling it Combined Arms. And here it's yet another way to experience that Battlefield sandbox, you know, next to our war stories and the multiplayer. And what we want to do here is to allow you and up to 3 players to go online and step into those shoes of the Pathfinders, those paratroopers that go in behind enemy lines. And here you really only have the soldier next to you, maybe not Brian, but
yeah,
the soldier next to you to rely upon as you move forward, since, you know, getting detected might mean death. And you will soon be struck by resource scarcity. You need to find the tools and find your way to the objective. So stakes are high, and you need to kind of assess, can I push through or do we need to extract early? It's kind of win or lose. It's up to you.
I've been a huge fan of war stories, the single-player campaign in Battlefield 1. What I truly enjoyed about it was I felt like I was learning about the stories behind the war and playing through the stories of the war, and it didn't always end well. And what I loved is because of that history element, like for instance, I told my little brother, I said, hey, if mom ever catches you playing, just say this is a history class that you're doing on the console. And then what I'd do is I'd tell my mom he was going to do that so she would know that I was always her favorite. And what was great was seeing this story. Lars, like, how is single player going to change in Battlefield 5?
Don't tell this to my kids. Well, are they changing? I mean, to me, I'm happy that you like the war stories. And for us, the war stories are really our opportunity to put the war into perspective. It's really about those human and untold stories of the war. And we try to portray those kind of real and relatable people facing epic warfare. And it's Battlefield after all, so we'll be talking a lot here today about the gameplay improvements. So player agency is key, so you can create your own Battlefield moments. And at the bottom line, it's about allowing you to witness the Second World War, but through the eyes of the men and women that changed the world.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see here, I mean, this is one of the war stories that we're going to be talking about first. I mean, this is our Nordlys story. This is the story of a young woman who is part of the Norwegian resistance fighters fighting the German occupation during World War II. I mean, this is an exploration of emotion and feelings. It's a family story. Right? You know, and this not only sort of really grounds the players in the reality, but sort of sets the context of the World War II that we're trying to create at DICE.
It's not often that you find stories that connect with the emotion of the characters in the story. Instead of just focusing on the explosions and the gunfire, you see that look in her eyes. You want to know what she's thinking, what she's experiencing in that story. Why was it so important for you to focus on the people behind the stories from war?
Well, I think it's important to tell, you know, sort of believable and sort of honest stories and really sort of set the context and sort of maintain that connection to the world that we're trying to create. I think it's important for people to understand where we're coming from and what our particular take is on World War II.
So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go back to Daniel now to cover what you'll take to the battlefield with you.
In Battlefield 5, we're aiming to mirror the immense arsenal of the Second World War. This was a period that saw an explosion in terms of innovation when it comes to weapons and vehicles. You will get to fly iconic airplanes, engage in incredible tank battles, and also unleash secret weapons from World War II. Weapons that are powerful enough to turn the tide of any battle. And with the new fortification system, you can be more strategic than ever in how you choose to defend or advance through the terrain. Back to you guys.
You know, in playing Battlefield, I know everyone in the audience will agree with me, people at home as well. I've always been impressed by the level of realism in the game. I remember once I was playing with a friend who served in Special Forces, and we were talking about our favorite guns, and I was talking about the recoil and what I liked about the sights versus other guns. And he turned to me at one point and he said, "Oh, where did you serve?" And I felt embarrassed because I was like, "Oh, Battlefield 3, that's where I was." And instead of him being angry, he was like, "I didn't know that there was a game that was that immersive, something that really was as true to real without being a war simulation as possible." Guys, tell me about some of your favorite weapons in the game, some of the new vehicles that will be available in Battlefield 5.
I think at first, just by going back to this era, the pool of hardware that we can choose from is immense. There's so much there. And for me, being a vehicle guy, it's really quite a simple choice. It's the Tiger 1.
The Tiger 1 tank?
Yeah, I think it's the most iconic tank from this era. I just think it's amazing.
What do you like about it? That's a weird choice for me.
Have you seen it? I think it's the best.
What, like the looks?
A bit, but also
Are you checking out a tank?
Have you been in a battle with that?
Yeah, but I've never looked at it. I'm like, if I'm on the outside, I'm dying. If I'm on the inside, I'm concentrating. When are you looking? When are you doing this?
You should try third-person camera.
And just run around the tank dying, and everyone's going to be like, "Who's that guy looking at the tank?"
It's come on, it's beautiful.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, good.
So Andreas is a tank guy. Mr. Battlefield, Lars, how about you?
I'm with you, Trevor.
Yeah, you think he's weird. I know. Yeah.
We've been trying to hide it, but now it's out. No, the fact that I'm also a support player. I can't hit the barn from the inside, so I need the big clips. And for me, the MG42 is really the weapon I play in the playtest.
Right, my man.
It has that iconic sound that, you know, it sends fear all over the map. And another part of it is the new kind of system which Daniel talked about for high caliber weapons. So previously I could make the same impact as a pistol, basically. But this time around, it comes with a punch. So where the pistol gets stuck in the wall, I can rip through. So I can finally make a difference on the battlefield.
Hashtag no more knocking. I like this. All right, so we've got a tank guy. We've got a weapons guy. Ryan?
Well, sort of embarrassing to admit, unlike Lars, I can't hit a barn, period. So for me, it's the toolbox. In Battlefield 1, all players had a gas mask. In Battlefield 5, we're going to replace that gas mask with a toolbox. So that means I can run around the battlefield with my toolbox, setting up fortifications, and sort of really changing the dynamic of the battlefield so that these guys who can actually hit something, I can offer some value on the playing field.
Wait. So fortifications, you just skimmed over that, but what is fortifications?
Well, I mean, this as a support player, I mean, I think this is something you really love. It's something I think is a great addition to the game. It really allows you to sort of, for players who want to focus on the objective. I mean, this is something you can sort of pull out your toolbox. You can build reinforcements. You can reinforce buildings that Andreas has destroyed with his tank. You can build foxholes and set up machine guns so people like Lars can sit there and camp out at choke points. I mean, this is going to change the strategic way people play, both as attackers and defenders.
Was that in response to the gaming community? Because I know as a Battlefield gamer, I always wanted what I didn't have. So first I was going, hey guys, I need destruction. I need places to fall apart. And then at some point I was like, too much destruction. There's nothing left. Was this a response?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of esteemed players in here in the studio today and in the community overall who, at some point, especially when we're testing, we came to a point where the level was leveled. The world was leveled and you couldn't advance. So basically, this is to counter that and give you an additional kind of toolbox to rebuild. And then you and I can come in as heroes again, and they fortify. We come there and we add an extra heavy machine gun or an AA gun. So it's kind of teamwork once again, and we are the celebrated heroes.
We are the celebrated heroes we deserve to be. I like that, Lars. Thank you. Now, now that we've learned about the tools, let's hear about the company. Here to tell us more, please welcome Natalie Ek.
Trevor, and yes, the company is something that is completely new to Battlefield 5. It's your personal collection of customized soldiers, weapons, and vehicles that you can tailor and grow as you play. The company is the heart and soul of your personal experience, and the choices you make here for your company actually matters. Not only will your choices affect the way you look, but also how your weapons and vehicles play. As you squad up with your friends, make sure to pick a soldier that complements the rest of your squad to take on the battle ahead. And during the game, adapt to the changing circumstances by calling your company and bring in the right soldier, weapon, or vehicle to suit your situation. Back to you, Trevor.
Andreas, that really sounds awesome. Tell me more about the company and how it works, because I know from my years in Battlefield that the group that really plays together stays together.
No, the company is something that we're super excited about. So for the first time, you can now create your own personal experience with the soldiers you take onto the battlefield. It's really up to you to decide how you want them to play and also how they look. So as you keep playing and you get better, your soldiers will get better with you.
So give me an example of how this would impact me as a support class.
So if you take your support class player you want, and you start playing with that soldier, and you start progressing him, you're going to unlock a set of new abilities, new perks, and sort of these new exotic ways to play the game as a support class, and then unlock new weapons for yourself to play with. You take that machine gun that Lars loves so much, and you level that machine gun up. You make the choices that matter, and then you decide, well, I think this needs its own custom paint job. So you sort of make that machine gun, really make it your own, and then you go in and you grab that sort of iconic support outfit that you really want to wear going into battle. You jump in with some friends and off you go.
It's funny you brought up customization, because I've always believed in Battlefield the team is important, but looking badass is the most important thing. I think anyone who's been in war can agree with this. Please tell me that I can customize my look to be properly badass in the battlefield.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, if it's worth doing looking good.
Right.
So I think, part of the tactical gameplay that comes with Battlefield, I mean, what we want to do is give you the ability to create your own personal identity. So, no more anonymous soldiers. This is your soldiers in their boots going into battle. their own weapons, customized the way that you want to do it, the gear that you want them to wear. I mean, this is going to feel like it's your own personal arsenal.
And obviously, I want to get as much of that arsenal as I can possibly get. How do I even begin getting all of this gear?
You play the game. I mean, for what we want players is you get rewarded for playing the game.
Yeah, and, I mean, it's pretty short. It's whatever you want to progress towards, your company, your class, or a specific item, you play the game. And we set out to commit to that you always feel rewarded for what you do, whatever you play.
So you just play to unlock these items. Then I guess I have to ask, and I know it's a sensitive subject, but I'm still going to go there. Is this game going to be pay to win?
No, you can't pay to get an unfair gameplay advantage.
What if I have a lot of money?
Call me.
So you won't be able to pay?
No. So in Battlefield, it's always been about a balanced rock, paper, scissors gameplay, and it still is. You really have to, like Les was saying, you have to play the game to earn new gear, and skill is really key.
Okay, but what about Premium Pass? Will it be one of those games where I have to shell out another $50 6 months after I've bought the game? Is that how it works?
Well, I guess I get the fun part of not taking any more of your money as well. But no, there's no more Premium Pass in this game. This means no more.
Wow.
Thank you. It's the least I can do.
Thank you.
Yes. I mean, this means no more paying for maps, no more paying for modes. This is something the community has asked for. This is something the team really believes in. So what we want is a game where people stay together, they play the games together, and they get to go on this journey through World War II together.
That's beautiful. That means I finally lose my nickname, No Maps Noah. This is so dope. All right, well, it's time to learn about what happens after the game launches. So to tell us all about live service, please welcome back Natalie and Daniel.
So launch is really just the beginning. Tides of War is an epic journey that you and your company will take through World War II. It will bring you an evolving, diverse game that will grow over time as we immerse you and your company in different theaters of war. Playing Battlefield 5 is an experience unlike any other. It will differ from all previous Battlefield games. And the most important thing, it's open to all players.
Yes, and there will always be new battles, new fronts, and rewards on the horizon. And by removing Premium Pass, we are keeping the community together. So this time, there will be no expansion packs, and all players will be able to take part in the same journey through Battlefield 5. And with Tides of War, our players will experience themed chapters of World War II, each spanning over several months. And these will focus on key moments that impacted the outcome of the conflict. Trevor?
This sounds to me like a wild, full ride through World War II, but Lars, like, how big of a journey will this be?
How long is the string? No, I mean, to put it into perspective, this was a world war, and I mean, to me, it's going to be a huge journey. I mean, we want to take you on that journey with chapters from the history, and at the end of it, we really want you to be kind of experiences daily, weekly, and monthly events leading up to kind of the pinnacle of the grand operations and experience to achieve those special assignments, getting treated with extra rewards. So it is about keeping it fresh and constantly evolving, since what we see here and talk about here today is just the beginning. And as you play it through, you start to be taken to a new horizon, new locations, new gameplay, and I mean, stick in for the ride.
It sounds like it's going to be one of those experiences where the more I play, the more cool stuff I can get. I get rewarded for my time. Is that going to be across different modes?
It's really simple. You just have to play the game to earn new cool gear. And it doesn't matter if it's multiplayer or combined arms. Like you see here, you will be able to earn new vehicles, new weapons. It's going to be dog tags and soldier skins, weapon skin. It's all there to really customize your crew to really be standing out on the battlefield the way you want it to be.
Right, it sounds amazing, and I only have one question, and that is, when does this all start?
Well, the game launches in October. So starting November, running through early 2019, we're going to start with our first chapter, which is going to focus on the fall of Europe. So we're going to explore sort of the German mechanized war machine as it pushes its way into Europe. This is going to be live gameplay-focused events. We're going to have thematic rewards tied to this. You know, and we can't wait to talk to the community more about this between as we lead up to launch.
Yep.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, you guys have definitely raised my analog stick, and I think we've waited long enough. This is the most immersive battlefield yet in a World War II you have never seen before, where launch is just the beginning of the journey. I'm done talking. I think it's time we see this thing. Are you all ready? Well, here it is, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, the reveal trailer for Battlefield 5.
Launching grenade! I got your back. That's the rockets! Fuck it! Hello, old friend.
Games play best on Xbox One.
Wow. Wow. The car, the thing, the man, the boo. You saw the thing, the man, the huh? I hope they got insurance. That was insane. Did you see that?
I did say it.
That was, Andreas, I don't feel like you saw it. I feel like you've seen it before.
I might have seen it before.
The person jumped on their back and then started shooting while moving on their back.
Yeah. It's cool. That's all I can say.
This is what happens when you live life in a tank, Andreas. That was exciting. Give it up for that one more time. That was an amazing trailer. Oh, wow. So wait, so before we go, am I correct in saying there were some new animations there? There were some new moves that you could do in the game?
There's a few.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Andreas. Thank you, Andreas.
To be honest, as in, I think we should thank the team back home in Stockholm for
Huge call out.
helping us to get to this point. I think they are truly amazing. And the fans. Again, we've been waiting for this moment for so long to be able to reveal what we've been working on.
This is really packed with gameplay, and then, I mean, a lot of this is direct feedback from community, leading to a lot of these improvements. So it's a huge thank you for the support, and once again, the team for doing an extraordinary job.
As always.
And I'm pretty sure the look on your face, you know, hits the mark they're going for. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure that was unexpected.
I'm excited. I'm excited. Give it up for the people in Stockholm, please. Let's give it up for the people in Stockholm. Wow. Wow. Battlefield 5 launches worldwide on October 19th. In the meantime, these guys are giving away free expansion packs in Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4. So just head to battlefield.com for all the details. And next up is EA Play on June 9th, where you'll see multiplayer for the very first time. I hope all of you are as excited as I am for Battlefield 5. To watch that trailer again, go to youtube.com/Battlefield. And if you want more info, join some of the team here with Xbox who are hosting an exclusive post-show on mixer.com/Xbox. That is our show for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. I'm Trevor Noah. Good night. Wow.
Welcome back. This is the IGN Battlefield 5 post show. Going to give you our thoughts, go over all the details you may have missed. Max, first impressions, straight out of the gate. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. There was a point in there where they said, is this more Saving Private Ryan or more Inglourious Bastards? It definitely had much more of an Inglourious Bastards vibe to me based on what we saw.
100% agree.
A lot of customized things and mohawks and face paint. And
we didn't see much,
yeah,
but what we did see that was really cool. Let's take a look at that trailer. So it opens in this kind of weird pseudo-CG into gameplay thing that I have gotten over a long time ago. But that being said, I appreciate that it is able to evoke the style that we're going to be seeing. I just really wish it was maybe a couple cinematic moments and then bam, real gameplay, because this is definitely not real gameplay. But
yeah,
what are you seeing here?
It's definitely a bit, I'm not much of a history buff, but it seems a bit anachronistic. She's got this very, very ornate prosthetic arm. There's sort of...
She also gets shot there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a video game still. Obviously, they're leaning a lot on destructible everything, as you can see there. They mentioned the change to traversal system, and you can see some of that really well right here, where she's moving backwards while prone.
Yeah,
or shooting backwards while prone, which is very cool. Right around here, we got a little bit of music piping in, which sounds like there's going to be some radios and stuff, which I'm into.
It's definitely more of like a Battlefield Heroes vibe than like Battlefield 1, which was extremely historically accurate, and I think a lot of people liked it. They're taking it in a much more historical fantasy direction, I feel. Obviously, it's going to be bombastic, it's going to be crazy, stuff is going to be exploding, but I'm really curious to see how much of this stuff makes it into the gameplay, whether it's just aesthetics and people are running around with all these different customizable things, or if they're actually like some weird Call of Duty or Rainbow Six Siege operator thing happening.
Yeah, one thing I really did love about Battlefield 1 was the sort of dichotomy between how dry and how serious and somber the visuals were, and then you'd get killed by some guy with with Bonglord in his username or whatever, and a Dragon Ball Z avatar he made himself, and you're like, okay, well, but this is colorful. This is colorful as hell right here. Yep. I want to wait and see actual gameplay in action before.
It's honestly more of like kind of a Vietnam color palette. There we see that's a jet, so that's a post or end of World War II experimental. One of the really cool things, secret weapons they talked about here, we can see a melee kill pilot coming in, maybe that crashed jet. Somebody spawns, and who is it? Is it the prosthetic arm lady? Yes, it is.
With a cricket bat.
She's got a cricket bat.
Very Shaun of the Dead. I like it. Yeah, I mean, they touched on a few things that really made my eyes light up. One was secret weapons, which means they're going to be dipping into kind of emergent technology and weird, like the weirder side of things, which I thought was something that really, really attracted me about Battlefield 1, was the fact that there were so many like kind of experimental vehicles and weapons, and they did also have a carrier pigeons mode, which is kind of silly.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's tons of stuff like that from World War II. But also talking about the way they're changing traversal and how they mentioned explosions would change movement.
Would push you back, and I think that's really interesting.
And I can see people definitely kind of cheesing that and getting weird with
making some weird
physics.
Sure, some weird videos. So speaking about traversal. The traversal system has evolved from Battlefield 1942. We talked about it a little bit in the pre-show. 1942, you were running, you were crouching, you were going prone, and it was very, very slow. And we've gotten more and more and more up to the point where Battlefield 2 had everybody dolphin diving, it was called, and you would go prone super fast. And people got sick of it, so then in Battlefield Bad Company, you could only crouch. But it looks as though they're going to be doubling down on the gradual going to the ground, staying on the ground, being able to move around on the ground. Going prone doesn't get rid of your ability to strafe, it appears, or go forwards or backwards. Certainly interesting, but some of the other stuff that they really hit on, and again, not too much to show here, but we do have a ton to talk about. Grand operations. I think this is the first thing that they talked about that I really got on board with. So for those who don't know, operations in Battlefield 1, we talked about it in the pre-show just a bit, and it was essentially you play through this historical campaign, and it can either deviate from history or you can stay true to history, and you can see what happened if your side loses or if your side would have won. Now, the main problem I had with that was it was just conquest, 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 conquest. And the thing that I really want is this really cool playlist thing, because so many cool game modes, Rush, the kind of pseudo bomb plant, majority rule conquest. So not only are we going to be changing scenery and have some historical context, but we're also going to be changing gameplay, which I'm thinking.
That sounds really fun. It sounds like a narrative, historically accurate driven playlist that it's also set across like I think 4 days, they said. So it's going to change, day and night and everything, and I think they're going to jump around in locations. But that seems like a cool, action-packed history lesson.
I know. What better way to tell a World War II invasion story?
I like to learn, but I also like to blow stuff up. So
that's going to be Battlefield 5 in a nutshell, it seems. So jumping out of airplanes to destroy AA guns, that was one of the references they used. Moving on to, I guess we can talk about war stories, and we can talk about the cast of characters. We touched on this a little bit already, but man, this is a strange group. Not what I expected.
No, not so much. It's kind of odd. They touched on how they want to show off different sides of the war that we haven't seen before. I think they said the first chapter is going to be the fall of Europe, which again, that's the area of World War II that people mostly talk about. But I believe the first part of the stories is going to be Norwegian resistance, which
or at least a part of it.
Yeah, which is something I don't really know a whole lot about. I'm curious to see how much of this they lean on showing the resistance sides of things is definitely gives some wiggle room to sort of more customizable characters, and you're not sort of duty bound to be wearing a particular uniform.
Sure, which is kind of part of the Battlefield identity for me. A lot of people still play Battlefield. There are some modes, and some people, Project Realism kind of locks your loadout to what would have been historically accurate for the force they're using.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this is a video game. You need progression. You need stuff like that. But let's talk about some new mechanics. I think a really interesting thing that I did not expect at all is fortification. So this is a building system that you can make your assumptions and jabs about how it's in reference to a very popular Battle Royale game. But this is something that Battlefield, I feel, has needed for a long time, since Bad Company, since you can blow up an entire building.
Well, yeah, why have destructible environments if you can't also have constructible environments?
Yeah.
I think that's a really nice addition. I think we were speculating about this with Battlefield 1, I want to say.
Sure.
But it makes a ton of sense. I'm interested to see exactly how robust this is, because it could be as simple as, like, I don't know, put a turret here, put a foxhole here, or it could be build walls, build full-on structures. So
sure, absolutely. Another interesting thing: bullet penetration, snipers, heavy weapons. That is something that I'm extremely grateful for. Pistols have been strangely overpowered for a long time, but I definitely want to feel powerful when I'm using those larger weapons, when I'm picking up an MG42 off of somebody's corpse to like shoot through a very thin wall. Then also, speaking about one of the weirdest things that I thought, which we can jump to, and we'll talk about this for a hot second here. The company. The company is a feature that I thought was one thing. That was it right there. Actually, Baird, if you could pull up, there we go, that screen, that'd be fantastic. And we'll just talk about this a little bit. So here's the first look at the company. This is British, and you basically have your specialist over there, your medic / assault. Then you have your sniper, your scout, and then finally that is your support. And then you see the vehicles, the planes, stuff like that. And what's very bizarre about this is there are numbers next to every single vehicle. So that could be a level system. This could be displaying the level you have next to a tank. It could also be an amount of charges you have on something, almost akin to a Halo 5 Warzone. They were talking about making all of your soldiers really good and bringing them into battle and calling in vehicles. So you can definitely call in your own customized vehicles, maybe. I'm very curious to see what this was. I thought it was going to be guilds, and it's not.
Yeah, the phrasing was interesting. They said the soldiers and accoutrement that you bring onto the battlefield rather than take onto the battlefield,
sure,
or that you I don't know, go onto the battlefield with, or whatever the expression is. But yeah, bring specifically sounded almost like it's like a thing you're bringing to the team.
Right.
I'm a little bit worried that this is taking a page out of Battlefront 2's book, where it's if you want to unlock stuff, you've got to get out there and play the game and score points to do so. One thing I do think is cool is leveling up your weapon, hopefully getting more customizations. That's like a straight up Modern Warfare thing, and I do like that progression. In Battlefield 1, we had a system where you could unlock variants by doing specific things with weapons, which was cool because it increased readability, but I did think it detracted a little bit from progression.
And this is the first time in a Battlefield game that you'll be able to customize your soldier, surprisingly, to my knowledge, in a big way. But a lot of this did also kind of feel a little bit similar to renamed Battlefield 1 features that already exist, such as loadouts. And
yeah, I mean, it's
perks.
incredible how like a seemingly minor tweak like this can completely change the gameplay experience, and it's, you know, we're gonna have to get our hands on it to really get a feel for, you know, what it's like. But yeah, I'm as much as the sort of cosmetic stuff sort of takes me aback with the, you know, seemingly robot arms and tattooed, you know, neck tattoos and stuff like that. I would prefer to have predominantly cosmetic things than actually changing the sort of the I don't know, the kind of back and forth turnaround of actually playing the game.
Which brings us to a great point that I think a lot of people have a very big problem with EA about, and this is monetization. So they were a little bit vague on some parts. They said no pay to win, which of course everybody will say. That is just what you say when you're in that situation. But no premium pass. That is tangible. That's a real thing. So premium pass, you paid an additional thing. And the best part about this, no more paying for maps and modes. This has been a problem in Battlefield going back so far that you stratify and segment your audience to, oh, I have this pack, but I don't have this pack, so I'm not going to be able to play on you with that map. And that's always sucked.
No, it's
so
a
really cool
huge bummer, because I mean, just I was, you know, jumped on there this, like, I don't know, last week, and I was it was in one of the kind of, you know, naval maps where you're in like a big, you know, U-boat hub or whatever, and there was like one other guy in there, and I was like waiting for other people to join up, and I was like, well, this wouldn't be a problem if this was open for everybody, you know?
Sure.
And you'd think at this point it would just be sort of out there for the public, but lo and behold, it isn't. So this is good news, though.
This is good news, that there's going to be none of that. That's not to say that shortcuts kits will not still exist, but let's move on and talk about Tides of War, which I think is a really interesting thing that is essentially, if you break it down, it's kind of like an Overwatch season or a Fortnite season. Season 1, if you got your Battle Pass all the way to 50, you got the Black Knight skin and backpack. And here, Tides of War taking place over a historical context over a couple of weeks or months. I was a little bit fuzzy on the exact time, but this is essentially just seasons straight out of games like Fortnite, League of Legends, and getting exclusive stuff for playing at specific times, which I think is a great incentive for both new and returning players.
Yeah, I love that. You know, that's the kind of thing you're like, oh, everyone's pushing this direction. You know, jump in there and, you know, vote with your controller effectively. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see exactly how much they try to line it up with historical events, because obviously there's, you know, plenty to track with World War II. But that would be kind of cool if they're like, hey, this weekend we're doing this battle, we're reenacting
this anniversary.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's nuts. And what is also really cool about this, we can see soldier skins, face paint, weapon skins. The thing I like about this, and earning things as opposed to getting them out of a loot box, even if you earn that loot box, is that skin or that piece of aesthetic equipment is telling a story effectively. You're like, oh yeah, it was this really cool limited timed event where we were storming the beaches of Normandy, and I got this sick skin for my M1 Garand. And this is something I like a lot. This is something that I think Battlefield has struggled with for a long time, which is like they have a very strong launch. The core community, which by the way is like 35% of people stick around for the duration of the game, that core community will taper off, and they do a poor job with like, hey, come in this weekend and we're doing this. So I think this is really cool. So in that sense, I'm kind of two opinions on Battlefield 5 in total. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not as excited as I was hoping I would be, but I am very, very curious to see more. And obviously, we're at a point where the game that comes out in the box and the launch day is usually very different from what it is 6 months later. So I hate the concept of games as a service, but when you lean heavily on a massive multiplayer community,
you have to be.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that they know what they're doing with this. You know, if we're getting the kind of like long tail support that Battlefield 1 got, except this time it's not segmented off by premium pass. That's huge.
That's fantastic. I completely agree with you, Max. So you can get your Play First trial on October 11th. The Deluxe Edition will get you in on October 16th, and then the Standard Edition October 19th. This is just, I guess, paying the piper. You know, you have to do this kind of thing if you want people to buy your most expensive pass. Yeah. But overall, I'm very excited about things like bullet penetration, about fortifications, about the company, whatever that is, all the gameplay-focused things, the grand operations, and then finally talking about the Tides of War. That stuff really interests me. The aesthetic, what they're doing in the historical context, leaning a little bit more on the fantasy, I think I have to see more of. But to give you folks some context at home, in just a few seconds here, I want to show you the history of Battlefield as a whole. And they did it. It was funny. I was editing here last night at 1 a.m. Pacific time, cutting this thing, and they one-upped me because brilliantly, they took it back from Battlefield 1 all the way to 1942. I did it linearly, but I think it's a really cool look at where the series has come from, both in terms of graphics, and it has been around for a very long time through thick and thin. So if we're all ready, please enjoy the history of Battlefield. So that was my Monday night.
Good work on your history
Thanks,
homework.
man.
Nicely done.
It was really fun. As you can see, it's been around for a long time, since 2002, in fact. And through that, it's gone through iterations, some amazing, some a little bit subpar. But I do feel that they've, in the last few, 3, 4, they had a little bit of a rocky start, but it got to a really good place, and 1 have been superb with their post-launch content, and I can only hope that that is the case for Battlefield 5. Max, what are you most looking forward to about Battlefield 5?
I want to see the crazy weapons, the strange kind of, like secret,
The V2 rockets.
Exactly, yeah.
The artillery that shoots across the British Canal, that kind of weird stuff.
Yeah, strange things, like nuclear trains or whatever.
Sure.
Stuff like that.
World War II has that kind of like a cult aspect to it. But I don't think we got to see as much as we were hoping that we'd be able to see for Battlefield 5, but we will be able to see more come June 9th. And of course, you can watch the trailer on IGN, and anytime that we get news, we'll make sure to give that news straight to you. So for all things Battlefield, keep it right here on IGN. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Max.